Tonight, we take you to the heart of a global flashpoint, the South China Sea. These are some of the most contested waters on the planet, hiding a treasure trove of natural gas, enough to power a nation for decades. But this is about more than energy. It's about sovereignty, international law, and a growing showdown between China and the United States. The Philippines, with over 115 million people, is caught in the middle, fighting to protect what it claims as its own. The world is watching because what happens here could redefine the balance of power for the 21st century. For the Philippines, this is about survival and economic independence. For China, it's about projecting power and securing resources for its massive economy. For the United States, it's about upholding freedom of navigation and honoring a decades-old defense treaty with a key ally. Tensions are rising. Chinese Coast Guard vessels are more aggressive. Philippine supply boats face water cannons, and American warships are patrolling with increasing frequency. This is a high-stakes game, played with billion-dollar naval assets and the livelihoods of millions hanging in the balance. The South China Sea is a critical artery for global trade. Over $3 trillion in commerce passes through every year. Any conflict here could disrupt supply chains, spike energy prices, and create instability far beyond Asia. The principles at stake are universal. Does a country have the right to its own resources under international law, or can a larger power impose its will by force? We're on the ground and in the air, bringing you exclusive access to this unfolding crisis. We'll speak with sailors, politicians, and experts to break down the history, analyze current events, and explore what this means for the future. This is more than a territorial dispute. It's a defining moment for global order and a struggle for resources that will shape our world for generations. Stay with us as we go deep into the South China Sea showdown. The stakes could not be higher. The outcome here will echo across the globe. To understand today's crisis, we must look back. For centuries, the South China Sea was a shared space for fishermen and traders from across the region. Nations like the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei have long-standing claims, based on geography and generations of use. The modern dispute began after World War II, as colonial powers withdrew and new nations defined their borders. The 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, established the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, giving coastal nations exclusive rights to resources within that zone. The discovery of oil and gas in the 1970s turned local disputes into a high-stakes competition for energy. For the Philippines, these resources promised energy independence and a path out of poverty. The Malampaya gas field discovered in the 1990s powered much of Luzon and showed the potential of these waters. But China's growing appetite for energy led it to assert sweeping claims, setting the stage for direct clashes with its neighbors. The era of shared seas was ending. A new era of geopolitical competition had begun. China's claim to the South China Sea is anchored in the controversial 9-dash line, a U-shaped boundary that covers nearly 90% of the sea. This line overlaps with the exclusive economic zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei. Beijing insists on indisputable sovereignty, citing ancient history, but its claim contradicts UNCLOS, which China has ratified. In 2013, the Philippines challenged China's claim at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. In 2016, the tribunal ruled overwhelmingly in favor of the Philippines, declaring China's 9-dash line had no legal basis. China rejected the ruling, calling it waste paper, and instead accelerated its island-building campaign, turning reefs into military outposts. These artificial islands now bristle with runways, missiles, and radar, sending a clear message: China will enforce its claims by force, if necessary. The legal victory for the Philippines became a stark reality on the water. The world saw that international law alone could not stop China's expansion. The standoff had entered a new, more dangerous phase. The United States has long been a Pacific power, but its role in the South China Sea has shifted. For years, Washington focused on freedom of navigation, conducting regular patrols to challenge excessive claims. But China's militarization of artificial islands and rejection of the 2016 ruling forced a change. The U.S. now explicitly supports the tribunal's decision and backs its allies more openly. Central to this is the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty with the Philippines, which now clearly covers attacks on Philippine forces in the South China Sea. This American assurance is a powerful deterrent, raising the stakes for any escalation. President Marcos Jr. calls the U.S. partnership crucial, a stabilizing force in the region. The commitment is backed by joint military exercises, intelligence sharing, and support for modernizing the Philippine military. The American shield is now firmly in place. Any power seeking to resolve this dispute by force must now reckon with the United States. The balance of power has shifted. Today, the standoff centers on the Second Thomas Shoal, a Yungan shoal to Filipinos, just 105 nautical miles from Palawan. Since 1999, Philippine Marines have held this outpost aboard the grounded BRP Sierra Madre, a rusting WWE-era ship. China wants the Philippines out. Surrounding the shoal, with Coast Guard and militia vessels in a near-permanent blockade, every resupply mission sparks dangerous confrontations, water cannons, near collisions, and intimidation. The Chinese Coast Guard fields massive ships, backed by swarms of militia boats, vastly outnumbering the Philippine forces. In response, U.S. and Philippine joint patrols have become more visible and assertive. The USS Ronald Reagan recently sailed within 80 nautical miles of the standoff, sending a clear message. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin declared, "Our commitment to the Philippines is ironclad." This direct involvement has emboldened Manila to continue its missions despite the risks. The standoff is now a test of resolve for all sides. At the heart of this struggle is a massive economic prize: natural gas. The South China Sea may hold up to 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. For the Philippines, developing reserves like the Reed Bank is an economic necessity, as the Malapaya field nears depletion. But China's aggressive actions have stalled all exploration. No company will invest billions while facing the threat of harassment. This economic blockade keeps the Philippines dependent on expensive imports. The U.S. security umbrella could change that, creating the stability needed for investment and development. The American shield is not just military, it's the key to unlocking the Philippines' energy future. The stakes are not just territorial, they're about powering a nation for generations. The South China Sea is a chessboard of power plays. China uses gray zone tactics, harassment and intimidation that stop short of war, to wear down Philippine resolve. The Philippines counters with assertive transparency, publicizing every incident to rally global support. America's strategy is integrated deterrence, military presence, diplomatic pressure, and economic cooperation. The U.S. signals that any direct aggression will have a high cost, while the Philippines leverages its alliance to defend its sovereignty. Every resupply mission, every joint patrol, is a calculated move in this high-stakes game. The risk: a single miscalculation could trigger a wider conflict. The world is watching every move. Experts say the U.S. clarification of its defense treaty has changed the game. Dr. Gregory Poling notes that Beijing can no longer assume it can bully the Philippines without risking a U.S. response. Maritime law professor Dr. J. Batong Bakal highlights Manila's transparency campaign, which has won global sympathy and support. Security analysts warn of the risk of accidental escalation, with so many vessels operating in close quarters. Economic experts stress that investment follows stability. No company will develop the Reed Bank without security. The U.S. presence acts as investment insurance, giving the Philippines a chance at energy security. The region's economic future now depends on the success of this security partnership. The stakes are as much about prosperity as they are about peace. Where do we go from here? The South China Sea remains a fragile balance of power. The U.S. shield allows the Philippines to assert its rights, but China shows no sign of backing down. The immediate future will see more joint patrols, more tense encounters, and more tests of resolve. Consistency and determination are key. Any wavering could invite escalation, but military posturing alone won't solve this. The goal must be to create space for diplomacy. The 2016 arbitral ruling offers a legal foundation for talks. The international community must press for a peaceful, rules-based resolution that respects all nations' rights. Dialogue, backed by credible deterrence, is the only sustainable path to peace. This story is far from over. Its outcome will shape the future of global order.